Welcome back to the podcast, It's Not You, It's PMOS. I'm Nick, and along with my co-host Lora, we're both accredited practicing dietitians and nutritionists with over 25 years between us helping women navigate PMOS and fertility. And here's the thing we want you to hear first. If you've ever made nutrition and lifestyle changes and felt like you failed, it wasn't you, it was PMOS. So stick around because each fortnight we share the same evidence-based nutrition and lifestyle tips we use with our own clients every day. The ones that actually help you start feeling your best with PMOS. Welcome back to the podcast. It's not you, it's PMOS. I'm Nick.
And I'm Lora, fertility and women's health dietitian. In today's episode, it's one that a lot of women ask and think about as they're approaching their 40s and 50s. And it's a question that we thought we would like to answer for you guys as well. So does PMOS disappear at menopause? Maybe you've spent decades dealing with irregular periods, fertility challenges, insulin resistance, and unwanted hair growth or weight struggles. And you're wondering whether menopause finally means the end of PMOS.
And it's a great question because most people think of PMOS as a condition that only affects women during their reproductive years.
But the reality is a little more complicated. While some symptoms improve, PMOS doesn't simply disappear when your periods stop. In fact, for many women, the focus shifts from that fertility and cycle management and conversations around that to making that metabolic health piece and cardiovascular health more of a focus. And also then muscle mass, bone health, and healthy aging becomes the topics that we really want to unpack with our clients. So today we are going to unpack exactly what happens to PMOS during menopause, what symptoms may improve, what symptoms may stick around, and what you can do to support your health in this next phase of life.
Yeah, so I think that's one of the main reasons why they actually changed the name from PCOS to PMOS, because they've added in that metabolic factor into the naming. So that's been, I think, a step in the right direction. But why doesn't PMOS simply disappear once periods stop?
Because PMOS is so much more than just a reproductive condition, and it really is highlighted in this next phase of life. So while irregular periods and fertility challenges can, improve, and those PMS symptoms that are problematic prior, they all kind of calm down and dissipate after menopause, but then that underlying metabolic and hormonal changes, they can continue throughout life. So they are the ones that sort of become a little bit more problematic and more of the focus. The international guidelines describe PMOS as a lifelong condition. So menopause doesn't end the condition, it changes how it shows up. And that's really important. And I think that's why Nick and I feel passionate about talking about PMOS early interventions, because you don't want to end up here in a whole heap of a mess with all these metabolic issues that have been brewing along the way. So those hormonal changes really do come into play at this stage of life. And I think this is a great opportunity to walk through what are those changes hormonally so we understand that piece a little bit better. So Nick, can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So in terms of what happens hormonally, as women move through menopause, estrogen levels naturally decline. Testosterone levels also fall, but women with PMOS often continue to have relatively higher androgen, including testosterone levels, compared with women without PMOS. So this means that symptoms such as facial hair growth, scalp hair thinning, and central weight gain may continue. So, this is the bigger issue. It's metabolic health.
Yeah. So that metabolic piece becomes what is really important. For many women, insulin resistance often remains, women with PMOS continue to have increased risks of pre-diabetes, type 2 diabetes, high cholesterol, high blood pressure, and cardiovascular disease. And as menopause itself increases, the cardiovascular risk does too. So this becomes an important stage for prevention and long-term health management.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And many women feel weight management becomes harder during menopause. And I would imagine that women with PMOS would find it even harder.
Exactly. Yep. It's really common that there's a difficulty in managing weight at this stage of life for all women, not just women with PMOS, but it does become a little bit harder because that central adiposity, that weight around that midsection, is even more problematic for women with PMOS. And it really highlights that we've got to be focusing on trying to shift the percentage of body fat here. And we want to be preserving muscle mass. We want to be focusing on that and reducing body fat percentage overall. So really common as we age, that muscle mass will naturally decline as we age. And that resting metabolic rate also decreases, and hormonal changes encourage fat storage around that abdomen. So that's not helping. So we do need to look at that and make that the priority, not just losing weight, but shifting the percentage of body fat and also preserving muscle mass. And that's going to support your metabolic health and improve your quality of life.
Absolutely. Well said, Laura. And it's good to start thinking about that before perimenopause and menopause or postmenopause, because it's, for some women, it is really quite a struggle to shift that central adiposity or that central weight. And then when we do reach the those times in our life, those stages, not comparing ourselves to the person next to us. We're individuals, our bodies work differently, and it can be counterproductive watching Betty over there doing, eating so much food and hardly exercising and still being able to lose weight. Everyone's on a different playing field, and Betty's wins might be different to your wins. I'm not sure why I chose the name Betty. But anyway, it's important to just take it slow and steady and not try and kind of like build Rome in a day, so to speak. Just little habit changes, step by step, and you'll get there in the end. So let's move on to our nutrition priorities for this stage of life. So Laura, what should women focus on specifically in regards to nutrition?
So we know there isn't no one best diet for PMOS. There's not one diet that is the be all and end all. It's all very individual. But if we're talking generally, we do know that the Mediterranean diet eating pattern is a very good way to eat. And that diet is really rich in those antioxidants, anti-inflammatory properties, high in vegetables and fruit, whole grains, legumes, nuts, seeds, extra virgin olive oil, and oily fish. So all the wonderful things that are good for heart health and metabolic health in general. So we do love this type of diet for lots of chronic health conditions as well, and healthy aging. So it really does fit for the, menopause as well. And yeah, I think having a Mediterranean style dietary pattern is a great place to start, but also then paying attention to the protein piece and making sure that you're getting enough protein within that dietary pattern. And this is going to be especially important to help preserve your muscle mass and support metabolic health as well. So it's also making sure that you're getting what you need out of the diet in terms of your macronutrients, particularly protein.
Yeah, and that's not dissimilar to anyone else. So whether you're living with PMOS or not, the same type of dietary pattern that Laura just mentioned is the most desirable one. Yeah, like it's like Laura said, it's not just about managing PMOS, but it's also for anybody really decreasing the risk of chronic diseases later on in life. So yeah, well said.
Yeah. I just want to add one more thing to that.
Yeah.
I think when you're thinking about this stage of life and weight can be a little bit of an issue for some women, that we're thinking we have to do something extreme. So I hope that's just highlighted that you don't necessarily have to do that. That's not necessarily the answer, but having a diet that is whole foods and higher in these anti-inflammatory properties, as well as meeting your individual needs, is going to be the best thing. So you don't need to go out and sign up for any of those crash diets to kind of shift the weight. That's not going to be the answer. And that could upset your hormones a little bit more. So just sort of to have that as a food for thought moment, just pausing on that to let you know that you don't need to necessarily change up everything and do something extreme, but more so just have a look at the quality of your diet and just see if you are meeting your protein needs. I wonder if you are, have you ever looked at that and considered that, what do you actually need? I think that's quite helpful to do that as a little exercise before going out and doing something wild and extreme.
Absolutely, because the extreme approach might yield some results initially, but like you said, Laura, like it could land you in a much worse spot later on down the track, and that's generally why we as dietitians encourage nourishing our bodies rather than restricting foods. Like we could talk about this kind of stuff all day, like getting into intermittent fasting where you're not even close to meeting your nutrient targets, depending on which form of fasting you chose to do. And that's just one example of, like I was just talking to someone in clinic yesterday about this very phenomenon, and they were like, but that just goes against everything that I've learned and I know. And I'm like, well, trust me on this. Like I've seen it time and time again. You nourish your body, you improve your symptoms, you improve your risk of chronic diseases, your blood markers look better, and you feel more energized. It's a no-brainer from where I'm sitting. We've just got to keep preaching our message, Laura.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Preach it. Yeah.
Without overstepping the mark, of course. Let's move on to exercise. So tell me about exercise and PCOS. PMOS.
PMOS, yeah. It's going to take us still a little bit to get that right. But yeah, in PMOS, we do talk a lot about including resistance training throughout your whole life. So this just becomes even more important when we reach menopause. Resistance training is something that you should do regularly, like 2 to 3 times a week at least. Mm-hmm. And that should also be done alongside regular walking and cardiovascular exercise. And that's because strength training helps maintain that muscle mass and supports healthy bone health, and it does help improve insulin sensitivity and then promote healthy aging. If you've got that muscle mass, you're going to be looking after your bones, you're going to be looking after yourself later in life, particularly when falls are a problem as well. If we can just go a few steps back and think about prevention, this is the thing that you should be doing. There's not many things that I say you should be doing. That's an absolute, but resistance training is something that the research is very strong about for women in general, and particularly at this stage in life. And we know that PMOS, we've got a higher risk of these things. So it is something that I say every woman should be doing.
Yep. Yeah, we don't tend to bark orders. We tend to work with our patients, but yes. I'm with you on this one, Laura.
It's the only one I do.
If you're living with PMOS and you're not doing at least one session of resistance training a week, you're not looking after yourself like you could be. So I normally recommend starting with just the one session, and once that is locked in, move to 2 sessions. And once you lock that in as a habit, move to potentially 3 sessions a week, and it will do wonders for your condition. All right, let's move on to mental health. So, Laura, do you think mental health remains a concern during menopause?
Absolutely.
It's a silly question, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Yes. And again, for all women, it is a really difficult time. There's lots of change going on, and it's a big life changing sort of phase where, yeah, like I said, we've got already a condition that puts you at a higher risk for many things. So there might be some things coming up in your blood work. You might be having the symptoms of menopause, hot flushes, the weight change, it's problems sleeping. So we've got all these things that are affecting your quality of life and how you function. And these things can increase those feelings of anxiety and can lead to depression. And we know that women with PMOS already have that higher rates of anxiety and depression and reduced quality of life. So this change in life can exacerbate those symptoms of mental health. Yeah. So mental health and well-being deserves that attention as much as we give physical health attention. Looking after sleep, going back to your doctor and talking about, what are some tools that we can utilize to improve sleep? What are some stresses that you can reduce in your life? Like maybe getting an individual meal plan to help you stop thinking about food and thinking of what to eat, and just reduce some of that thought processing of, what should I be doing and when should I be doing it, and, that sort of stuff. And then reaching out for further help if you need it too, from your GP, psychologist, whatever you think you might need to help you ride this wave better.
The things to do list can feel overwhelming, I'm sure. You've got to eat perfectly. You've got to do resistance training 3 times a week. You've got to make sure you get your 8 hours of sleep. You've got to try and reduce environmental toxins. You've got to try and better manage stress and mental health. I'm sure that would feel super overwhelming to hear for the first time, but I'm pretty sure that all of our listeners know that all of those items are really important for just general health and well-being. But it's important not to tackle them all at once. Similar to the resistance training strategy, start with one thing and nail it, and then take on the next thing and nail that. Try not to build Rome in a day. Just take it baby steps and you'll get there in the end. And within all of those categories, perfection's impossible. So giving yourself a break, non-judgmental, trying your best, learning from your mistakes, and the list goes on.
I think that's where a support team is really valuable. Having a multidisciplinary approach, and get those words out.
Yeah.
They are there as your clinicians, but also as your accountability partners, as your partners in helping you make decisions when things get cloudy and life gets in the way, because we are human. That's quite normal. We have hiccups along the way, although we have good intentions and great motivation at the beginning. These things do taper off as we have to juggle many things and many health concerns. So, utilize your team. You don't have to do it all on your own. You don't have to make all the decisions on your own. Sometimes having the right people in your team help you to discern what's really important to be working on first, and then working through the list as needed. What else can we add now that we've mastered that or got that habit into place? So yeah, it's like Nick said, Rome was not built in a day, and that's why having some support can be really valuable.
And that's pretty common in all different areas. So whether it's business or sport, or I'm sure there's plenty of other examples, but like the really successful people within those areas or those domains also have their support people, their mentors and their coaches and their trainers and you name it. Why should PMOS or just general health and well-being be any different? So in terms of PMOS and menopause, moving on, are there any symptoms that women shouldn't ignore if they're experiencing something a little bit abnormal?
Yeah, if there's any rapid hair growth or loss, it's a bit of an unusual change than normal, and it's quite significant. That's when you should reach out to your GP. Significant voice deepening or any of those kind of things are highlighting that the androgens are high, and that should always be investigated with PMOS and because it can mean other things. So it's important to not just go, yep, that's another thing and part of my condition. If you've got significant symptoms, they need to be discussed with your doctor. Don't let them kind of go under that umbrella of it's menopause or it's PMOS. They still need to be investigated.
Yeah. Awesome. So let's wrap up with some key takeaways. So we know that PMOS doesn't disappear at menopause. So Lora, can you take us through some key takeaways of this podcast?
So you're right. PMOS does not disappear at menopause. Did you like how I sang that? PMOS.
Yeah, and the head tilts as well when you do it.
Yeah. I'm just getting used to it.
Yeah.
So it does not disappear. It evolves. And the fertility-related symptoms and those PMS symptoms, they become less relevant, less problematic. But the metabolic and cardiovascular aspects often become more of a important issue. So we need to shift the focus towards heart health, blood sugar management, preserving muscle and bone health, managing persistent androgen symptoms, and supporting your mental health and well-being. Think of menopause as a new phase of PMOS management, not the end of the condition.
Absolutely. Okay. So thanks for joining us for another episode of the podcast. It's Not You, It's PMOS. If you found this episode helpful, please subscribe, leave a review, and almost more importantly, share it with someone who actually might benefit.
And if there's a PMOS fertility or women's health topic that you would like us to cover, send us a message. We'd love to hear from you. Until next time, it's not you, it's PMOS.
Bye for now.